The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Bradford again, people. Now this one will test your musical knowledge, because there are two bands, modern rock bands, who have mentioned this place before in their works. Highroyds Hospital, also known as the West Riding Pauper Lunatic Asylum. Do you know which bands they are? Well, if you don't, you're going to find out as we take a journey around Menston. Menston, Mensa's farm. Here's something that crossed my mind when I saw what this village's name meant. If you live here, does that automatically mean you're a Mensa member? I'm guessing not, but hey, I thought it was humorous at least. This is Menston, which lies on the A65 between Guiseley and Burley and Wharfdale. It's mostly within the borough of Bradford, but partially within Leeds. The part that's in Leeds has what's probably the best known landmark in the area, the former Highroyds Hospital. Known alternatively as the West Riding Pauper Lunatic Asylum, at least two modern rock bands have written songs about it. The Kaiser Chiefs are one of them, and they met at the school almost next door. Even though Highroyds is not within the Bradford bit, we will still be talking at length about the hospital here, because there are loads of other things in Menston which are related to it. The hospital itself is now a residential complex. That fact is a reflection of Menston's growing size. In the past 20 years, there's been an increased demand for much needed housing in the area, and Menston has been expanding as a result. This has had a few good effects. For example, a growing number of children helped to keep Menston Primary School open, despite it being threatened with closure in the 1980s. Menston has a railway station with direct trains to Leeds, Bradford and Ilkley, but it also used to have a small branch line connecting Highroyds to the railway network. There's a lot in this one, so let's get going. We begin in the southeastern corner of the Bradford part of Menston. It's important to note that some of this village is over the district boundary into Leeds. We wouldn't normally cross boundaries to talk about stuff, but here it's a necessity. This is Highroyds Cemetery. It's the final resting place of patients at the former Highroyds Hospital, which is over the boundary into Leeds. The cemetery was used to bury unclaimed bodies of patients who died at the hospital between 1890 and 1973. It was a cost-effective solution for the hospital to have its own burial ground, because it was considered unwise to admit that a relative was in an asylum. Back in those days, insanity was considered hereditary. The cemetery was restored in 2011 to create a tranquil garden of remembrance. It includes a heritage chapel that contains details of every single former patient buried here. That's 2,861 of them. Highroyds Hospital closed in 2003, and now it's a residential complex. At the end of this episode, we'll be crossing into Leeds to see it, and we'll go into great detail about it. There are several landmarks on this walk though that have connections to the hospital, and there's one right next to this cemetery. This is Menston Ambulance Station. It's built on land that was formerly part of the hospital's kitchen garden. This is one of the 62 Yorkshire ambulance service stations that are dotted across the region. Our next landmark is the Spindles. This is a brand new retirement community which was officially opened by the Lord Mayor of Bradford, Jerry Barker, in 2023. It's operated by Adlington Retirement Living, and it has 72 age-exclusive apartments. The Spindles occupies the site of the former Hare and Hounds pub, and it's designed exclusively for the over 60s. Most apartments benefit from patios or walkout balconies, and homeowners can enjoy the community's landscape grounds. Other on-site amenities include a restaurant, a cinema room, an activity studio, a fully furnished guest suite, a hair salon, a therapy suite, and a homeowner's lounge. Optional personal care packages are also available here too. So on this first part of the route, what we've effectively done is come around Menston Recreation Ground, which is what you can see behind me there. That will be the last part of the walk. We'll walk across this to finish the Menston route later. Now there's a few other things we have to see that are around the main village. We'll use the car for those, but effectively that's where the walk's going to end. It's going to be quite a walk though, because I think it's going to take me about 2 hours again, like Burley did. We'll see. Next, we're heading up to the Menston Club. Continuing north, next we have a members bar and snooker club which is simply known as the Menstone. It was established in 1918, but the original building on the Farnley Road has long gone. These days the Menstone is housed within a modern building with disabled access and a lift to the first floor snooker lounge. There's 3 tables up there. It could host the World Championships if it had seating. The club is open to all, but if you have a members card you get a 15% discount on most drinks. Nice. As well as snooker, several other sports are played in Menston. Not far away is Menston Cricket Club, who have played at the Fox Ground for decades. The club's archives include scorebooks, meeting minutes, photos and more from their formation in 1880 to the present day. A read through those will show you the club's golden age came in the 1950s. Menston Cricket Club has 2 all-girls teams and a women's team, and some long-standing international connections that attract touring teams from Australia and the Caribbean. And this is the reason why their ground is called the Fox. This is the Fox, the oldest pub in Menston with a history dating back over 200 years. The pub was originally called the Fox and Hound and once had a sign on its wall that read, "Headquarters of Everybody." In 1985, the Yorkshire Evening Post described the Fox as a smart and trendy pub in one of their articles. Today it's a gastropub that serves traditional British food with a Mediterranean twist. It's a popular spot for locals and visitors, and it's known for its warm welcome. Okay, there's a couple of religious buildings here in Menston. We'll see the main church in a bit, but this church right here has got an interesting tale to tell. Let's tell it. The Church of the Latter-day Saints is one of the very few Mormon buildings we have in the UK. Now, Mormonism began in Fayette, New York in 1830. It was the work of Joseph Smith and 5 associates. The first wave of Latter-day Saint immigrants moved across America to what is now Utah between 1847 and 1880. It eventually reached the UK, and Menstone can boast one of the best Mormon buildings we have in this country. Check out that 40-foot spire for a start. The Wharfe Valley branch of the movement has about 70 members with a catchment area that includes Guiseley, Ilkley, Rawdon and Yeadon. In the 1960s, this was one of the premier places in Wharfedale to have your wedding reception. I wonder if it still is today. Menston has a connection to the mainline railway network. This is the railway station, which is on the Wharfdale line between Ilkley and Leeds. As we know from yesterday's episode, the line was opened in 1865 by the Midland Railway. However, Menston Station did not open until 1873. There used to be a route to Otley from here, which was closed in 1965, but the Ilkley line avoided a similar fate, being reprieved in 1972. Electric services at this station commenced in 1994. Those two lines are not the only ones Menston has ever had. Between 1883 and 1951, Highroyds Hospital was served by a long private siding from just south of Menston Station. It was known as the Highroyds Hospital Railway, and it was originally built to supply building materials during its construction. Later it handled supplies such as flour for the kitchens and coal for the hospital's boilers. Movement of wagons between the siding and the hospital was carried out by the hospital itself. The railway company would often leave loaded wagons on the siding beside the main line and collect empties from the same spot. Okay, so since the station, pretty much, we've been climbing uphill. I mean, there is an upside to that. It means that at the end of the route, it's all going to be downhill back to where we began at Highroyds Memorial Garden. So, fingers crossed, this gets a bit easier, because that was very steep, I'll be honest with you. Now, behind us here, we've got the old school. We're going to be talking about Menston schools in a bit, because they're further around the route. Next, though, we're heading towards the church. Now we have Menston Methodist Church. Menstone is part of the Wharfdale and Aireborough Methodist Circuit, which includes 12 churches. Methodism in the village dates back to 1744, when the first Methodist Society was formed. The first chapel didn't open until 1826, and that was located at Lane Ends. In 1886, a new chapel was built to accommodate a growing membership, and it's that building which we're stood outside of here. The older chapel still exists, and it's currently serving as an artist's studio. The former Sunday school was, for 70 years, a community hall. It's the Malt Shovel now, a traditional pub that was built in the early 19th century and has a Grade 2 listing. It's undergone some recent refurbishments, including a new carpet, new flooring, new decorations, and a full outside makeover. The Malt Shovel has fought various battles to survive over the past couple of years, as the previous owners put it up for sale during the pandemic. Menston Parish Council registered the pub as a community asset 6 years ago so that they would be consulted in the event of such a move, but only had 6 months to attempt to secure ownership and safeguard its future. The pub is now a free house rather than being owned by a brewery. We're now at the Anglican Church, St John's. Built in 1871 in the early Gothic style, this church has undergone several developments over the years, including the addition of a north aisle in 1886 to give it more seating. In 1950, a major reordering took place here in thanksgiving for peace after the end of World War II. The organ was rebuilt and the pulpit was moved to its present position. It originally stood where the lectern is placed now. New furniture was ordered from Thompson's of Kilburn, and yes, that means some of the items of church furniture feature Robert Mousey Thompson's famous mice. St John's has 19 such carvings. Its beautiful east window was erected in 1876 in memory of Bertie Markland, who gave the land on which St John's is built. It depicts the visit of the Magi to the infant Christ and was designed by John Ward Knowles. In 1970, the Lady Chapel and 2 new vestries were added. The architect for both was Michael Riley, and the Lady Chapel is dedicated to the memory of his parents. The churchyard contains nearly 2,000 graves, with the first burial taking place in 1871 and the last in 1993. The Menston Arms is a Sam Smith's pub, well known for its traditional Yorkshire Sunday roasts. This one's seen as a locals pub, but given Menston's location, it can also be popular with weekend hikers. That's because it's situated on the Ebor Way. The interior comprises 3 rooms which share names with Parliament. They are the House of Commons, Crossbenches and the House of Lords. The pub used to have a unique thatched roof, unusual for a pub in Yorkshire. It was present for around 50 years but is now gone. The windows display the Sam Smith medals and there's an interesting coat of arms pub sign. Now, being a Sam Smith's pub, the use of mobile phones, laptops, tablets and similar electronic devices is banned, and the pub has a no swearing policy too. However, as sort of a step towards modernity, the pub now accepts card payments as well as cash. Now, if you've been following me for quite a while, you'll know that in certain parts of Yorkshire the name Fairfax is very important, and here in Menston it is indeed important. We're going to go and see the Fairfax Club now, which is another drinking establishment, and it's got a connection to a former Leeds United footballer. This is the Fairfax Club. This was redeveloped in 2021, replacing a much older 1970s clubhouse which was demolished. When it was reopened, it was done so by the former Leeds United and Bradford City footballer John Hendry as the special guest. The original Fairfax Club was opened by another former Leeds United footballer, none other than Jackie Charlton. The Fairfax name is important to Menston. Fairfax Hall, which is located on Main Street, was originally known as Menston Old Hall. It's where the Breers family originally lived. Charles Fairfax acquired the hall in 1627 and lived there until 1762. The hall is famous for being the location where Oliver Cromwell and his officers met before the Battle of Marston Moor in 1644. Now we come to Menston Primary School. This is a former infant school which opened in 1967. The junior school occupied a much older building. That one dated back to 1894 and was a new board school when built originally. Now the two schools have amalgamated to form Menston Primary School. This isn't the only educational facility Menston has. We'll be meeting a secondary school later in the shadow of Highroyds Hospital. Okay, we've got a parish notice board. You know what that means? Menston is done. Now, this notice board is outside the sort of last of the communal areas, apart from the recreation ground, which we're going to cross in a moment. This has got the library, it's got a medical centre and a few other bits and bobs. Let's check it out. Here's the library. Menston's was part of the West Riding branches that joined the Bradford district in 1974, along with the ones in Keighley, Homewood and Rose. It's right next to the Kirklands Community Centre. Kirklands is the central hub of Menston's communal activities. In a formal sense, this is Furness House. During the late 19th century, the Ilkley family occupied what was originally a house. Prior to this, the house and its adjacent small holding belonged to Mary Royds, whose grandfather purchased the property from Tobias Furness, a yeoman of Wakefield. That's how it got its name. There's a medical centre in this square too. I found nothing about it, but if you ever need to pick up a prescription in Menston, you can walk down the road to the pharmacy, which has been in existence since 1898. Menston's dynamic and up-to-date bowls club next. This offers social bowling and league play. The club has 5 internal club knockout competitions and an annual away day at Grassington. The club is open to new members, and you can learn more about it by visiting the bowling green to watch a match, talking to members, or visiting the club's extensive website, which handily I've linked for you below. Finally, to get back to Highroyds Cemetery, we have to cross Menston Recreation Ground, and I opted to do this as one long continuous shot. This is ginormous. Football is played here by Menston Town Football Club. They were established in 2010 and play in the Wharfdale Triangle League. There's also a youth side too, Menston Juniors Football Club. On the theme of football, Menstone has for many years been the residence of one Paul Jewell, the former manager of Bradford City, Sheffield Wednesday, Wigan Athletic and Ipswich Town. He's lived in the village since the 1990s. Dean Windass, the former Bradford City and Hull City footballer, lives in the village too. Okay, so we've made it all the way around Menston, but of course we are not done with this one just yet. Oh no. You see, I've got to drive a little way out to the east in a moment to catch a pub, and apparently there's a really good view up there, so we'll do that. But of course the other thing we need to do is see Highroyds Hospital, because we've been talking about it all the way around, but yet to actually see the building itself. So that's going to come at the end of this episode. We're going to cross the border from Bradford into Leeds, the unparished area of Leeds, and we'll go and see exactly what's doing with that. This is St Mary's Catholic Voluntary Academy, formerly known as St Mary's Catholic High School. It's an 18 to 11 mixed Roman Catholic secondary school and sixth form with academy status. It was established in 1964 and adopted its present name after becoming an academy in 2013. In October 1960, it was announced that a school would be built in Menstone because the village was growing. At that time, no more than 75 boys and girls per year were expected, so the plans were for a building for 360 pupils in the initial contract. West Riding County Council acquired 13 acres of land from the Regional Hospital Board, and work started on the site in July 1962. The school colours of purple, yellow and grey have remained unchanged since it opened. Students here come from Leeds, Bradford and some parts of North Yorkshire, although most come from the Roman Catholic communities of the towns to the northwest of Leeds. There have been quite a few well-known former pupils that have graced its corridors. They include Verity Rushworth, the television and musical theatre actress, Matthew Lewis, the actor best known for playing Neville Longbottom in the Harry Potter films, and Stuart Murphy, the first controller of BBC Three. But Kaiser Chief fans should also take note of this school. 3 members of the band, namely Nick Hodgson, Nick Baines and Simon Ricks, all met in the same class, aged 11. They would go on to immortalise Highroyds in a song which features on their second album, Yours Truly, Angry Mob. It's not hard to understand why Highroyds was well known to them. It's literally right next door. Highroyds Hospital was designed by the architect J. Vickers Edwards. The large Gothic complex of stone buildings was formally opened as the West Riding Pauper Lunatic Asylum on the 8th of October 1888. That name has also been immortalised by a modern rock band. West Riding Pauper Lunatic Asylum is the name of an album by Kasabian. Highroyds was intended to be largely self-sufficient, and it had its own library, surgery, dispensary, butchery, dairies, bakery, upholsterers and cobblers' workshops. It also had a large estate partly devoted to agriculture and market gardening. The patients lived in wards, and if they were able, they were expected to work towards their keep, either on the farm, in the kitchens or laundry, or in various handicraft facilities. In the final years of operation, Highroyds became outdated and unsuited to modern psychiatric practice. This was acknowledged by the chief executive of Leeds Mental Health in 1999 after complaints from consultants about violence and cramped conditions on the wards. After services were transferred to St James's Hospital and the Mount, Highroyds Hospital closed in 2003. Today it's a residential complex called Menston Park. The final stages of redevelopment began in 2019 with the conversion of the clock tower. The Kaiser Chiefs and Kasabian aren't the only ones with cultural references to Highroyds. The administration building, which is Grade 2 listed, features an Italian mosaic floor in the main corridor, intricately decorated with the Yorkshire rose and black daisies. The daisies provided inspiration for the title of a television screenplay filmed at Highroyds. Black Daisy's main subject was the experiences of those suffering with Alzheimer's disease. Since its closure, it's also been used as a set for the film Asylum and the television series No Angels, Bodies, Fat Friends, Heartbeat and The Royal. The drama, Diamond Geezer, which starred David Jason, was also partly shot at Highroyds too. Well folks, if you're a fan of Kasabian or the Kaiser Chiefs, this is definitely something to put on your bucket list. It's funny, I was having a little conversation with myself, thinking out loud as I was coming through the gardens to the clock tower here, about the people who would have been in this very building. They didn't necessarily have a screw loose, some of them. There was something wrong with them for sure, but the way to deal with them back then was just basically to lob them in an asylum and forget about them. Of course, we do have mental hospitals in the modern age as well, but nothing quite as brutal as what went on in there. And Highroyds, or the West Riding Pauper Lunatic Asylum if you will, still looks as menacing today as it did back then. Folks, whenever we come across an asylum, I just love doing them. They are fascinating places, and you could spend many hours researching the details of them, and the stories you'd unearth would be mind-boggling. Highroyds was undoubtedly one of the best known, and I hope this video has shown it in a positive light, but they were horrible places mostly. I, for one, am quite glad they don't exist anymore. It's time to move on. Thanks for watching. Bradford is now halfway done. See you soon. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.